Back now at 8:42 this morning on today's Relationships, Marriage, and Money. Recent statistics from the University of Virginia reveal the recession is a mixed bag when it comes to the state of matrimony. While some couples say that they are postponing plans of divorce, many others are deepening their commitment to marriage. NBC's Janet Shamlian explains.
Three couples from different walks of life, all with the same monumental problem, a marriage unraveling.
Tell me how bad it got for you.
For me, I mean, I was so miserable that, I was planning his funeral on the off chance he'd conveniently drop dead.
We would get in multiple fights. I mean, probably like every day or every other day, like screaming match fights. And I would be like, well, is it just better if we get a divorce? It was like, I would say that, and then he'd be like, I don't know, whatever you want to do.
To me, I said, well, we won't get divorced. We'll just hate each other for the rest of our lives.
Evelyn and Mario, Melissa and Gary, and Elisa and Mark were struggling with what some say happens to more than half of all marriages, a loss of passion, and the growing belief their future would be spent apart.
I'm sure you can laugh about it now, but how did it feel when you first heard she was planning your funeral? She was thinking about what it would be like if you died. How did that feel?
I was a little surprised that the depth of her anger had reached quite that.
Mark can laugh about it because their marriage did not end in either a funeral or divorce. Like a growing number of couples in America, the Bowmans, who have a young daughter, made a conscious decision to save their marriage.
Over the past 2 years, I've seen more and more couples coming in for counseling because they actually want to save their marriage, whereas prior to that, they were coming in learning how to separate.
All three couples worked it out. Lisa even documented the journey back to being in love in her book, Project Happily Ever After.
And we did a lot of little things, and a lot of little things added up to a big improvement. But if it was one thing, it was changing myself, which I never thought was going to be the case when I started this. I really thought that he was 100% the problem.
We're both happier than we've ever been.
We really are.
Busy and just like loving life.
One of the things I've had to learn to do is to listen.
Are there any lessons in there for guys?
It's in your best interest to keep your wife happy.
Back from the brink, as couples headed towards divorce make a U-turn on the road back to happiness. For today, Janet Shamlian, NBC News, Emmaus, Pennsylvania.
So Alyssa and Mark Bowman are now joining us this morning. As you just saw, Alyssa's book is called Project Happily Ever After, and also Argie Allen is the director of clinical training at Drexel University's Couple and Family Therapy Department. Good morning to all of you.
Good morning.
So how do you make it back from the brink? First, let's talk about your lowest moment. It happened after your daughter was born.
Yes. We were actually pretty good until we became parents. And having a baby was exhausting. My husband had just opened a business before we had a baby, so he was really not home very often. He was working 14-hour days, didn't really have an income. So I was the sole parent, sole breadwinner, and just became exhausted, depressed, angry, every negative emotion you can think of.
It sounds like something that maybe a lot of women would identify with. What about for you, Mark? What was your lowest moment?
I'm not sure there was exactly a lowest moment, but we certainly reached a point where both of us were strictly going through the motions and, communicating on a very not deep relationship level of where we just kind of went day to day, talking about what we had to do that day rather than dealing with our relationship at all.
And at one point, you really started, as you talked about here, imagining your husband's death.
Yes.
So what switched you around? What made you think, okay, let's work on this?
I really thought we were going towards divorce, and in my mind I was mentally planning my escape. And then I had dinner with a friend who happened to be divorced and remarried, and I ranted about my husband for 45 minutes, and I was looking for permission. And after the time I finished talking, and she just looks at me and she's like, what have you done to save your marriage? And that question I couldn't answer. I was like, well, I really haven't done anything. We hadn't tried counseling. I haven't tried doing anything constructive. And so I promised her, and she made me promise that I would try. And so I promised to try everything, even things that I thought were silly.
You started looking at self-help books.
Yes.
I mean, is this a trend, by the way, Argie?
It really is. I mean, I find in my practice that couples are wanting to fight for their marriage much more than they have before. And the stats say that 50% of people are getting divorced, but that means that 50% of people are staying married. And I can't imagine that those people that are staying married never thought about divorce.
Why are they fighting now when they didn't before, if there's been a trend?
Well, sometimes they're thinking thinking that the problems that I'm having now, I might have those same problems in another relationship. So why not fight for the relationship that I'm in now? But you need two people to do that. You can't do that by yourself.
So you talked to Mark about it. You both agreed to work on this together, and you started coming up with things that you saw in these self-help books. Like, for example, hugging was one of them. So you sort of like, okay, I don't really like this guy, but I'm going to hug him. That's what you were doing?
Yeah, I mean, you know, the hugging exercise probably wasn't the most important exercise that we did, but I went at it with an open mind, and that was one of the exercises that the book suggested. We were supposed to feel a profound connection during the hug, and I just felt profoundly bored. But there were other things like learning how to communicate, which I didn't think I had a problem with at all. I'm a writer. I figured I can communicate. I had a huge problem with communication.
So part of this is recognizing your own faults. In fact, you have 10 steps to happily ever after. Find yourself, define your problem, get your spouse on board, stop fighting about old stuff, get busy, learn how to romance each other, learn how to talk out loud, not too loud, feel understood, write your spouse's eulogy. Whoa. So which of those do you think is the most important?
Well, for me, it was talk out loud, not too loud, because I needed to learn how to be assertive. I was communicating through the silent treatment, through random acts of sabotage. He didn't get that. He needed me to talk out loud, but not aggressively. And I couldn't seem to learn how to be assertive without being aggressive, so I had to learn how to do it.
And you, Mark, what was the most important for you?
I think the same thing. I think a lot of times, as a man, my wife had difficulty communicating with me what she wanted to do. Men expect people up front to, you know, verbalize what you want to do, and you know, at certain times she certainly couldn't verbalize. You know, she wouldn't come out and say what she wanted.
Well, Alyssa and Mark, I can see that you're together now. You've got your hand on his knee, so that's a good sign, and congratulations.
Thank you.
And hopefully you've helped some people this morning. Archie, thank you so much also this morning. And coming up next, healthy food finds that